Hi, this is Richard Barrett for Guitarist Magazine, welcoming you to another Blues Headlines. The template for this month's headlines is Jimi Hendrix, though this kind of double stop playing soul blues style has been used by quite a few other people, including Stevie, Vaughan, John Mayer. Anyway, let's have a listen to the example solo and I'll be back to talk you through it. So as you can hear, I've squeezed in every idea I can. Maybe you won't want to play that busily if you're out there backing someone or playing in the real world. That's your prerogative. The idea here is to get to grips with where to find the double stops, where the patterns are, where the chords fit, and the pentatonics kind of collide with those. So there's quite a broad range of subjects that I'm going to tackle here, but perhaps we can best do that by getting straight on to example one. This isn't really a solo per se, but I am using notes in and around the chord shapes, and I guess the most logical thing is to show you what those chord shapes are. And the first one is this G triad, which looks like E minor 7th, but you'll see that I'm not using the E as a root in this case. The bass is playing a G. The second chord is a D, though rather than any regular D, I'm playing one. So I'm playing a D over F sharp, but the bass is playing the D. Okay, third chord, E minor 7th. I'm pretty confident we've all seen that plenty of times. And then the fourth chord is a C, though that does have the E on the bottom, so it's the same shape as the D. Those are the four chords, and if I have a little play around with those and maybe approximate what I did in the solo, I think you'll see what's going on here pretty quickly. So you can see they are pentatonic licks, actually. You'll see the pentatonic scales. I think the best thing to do is think of the chords and then look for the notes. Start by copying this and you'll find all sorts of things happening. Now the last bit of this lick is I've gone into this, which is a kind of cross section of shape 1 C major pentatonic and shape 5, which looks the same as A minor. So that's where that's coming from. We'll be doing some more of this in lick 2 in a second. I've used the same four chords in different positions for this second part, so let's have a look at those. Very Hendrix type G chord here. There's our G, and I've played around with it. Okay. Then the D. Okay. In the space of that D chord, that's one bar. I've started there, I've come to here to get the triad, and then I've jumped straight up here because I know what I wanted to do is get up here and play some double stops. So now I'm going to talk through that a little bit because that's a whole lot of notes and double stops. I've played my D and I've started while the D is still going to play my... That's a tricky move. I've used the same finger and rocked it across, and then jumped up another position to E minor pentatonic shape 1. So you can see I'm basically taking everything straight from that shape 1 E minor pentatonic over the E minor chord, playing 2 notes at once. So have a play around with it and it'll start to make sense when it's under your fingers. And when I've reached the bottom of that, I've gone for what is basically a C chord here, using the bottom 2 strings and then... So it's 4 chords again, and I've played around with those chords. It's all about what the inversion is and whether I've got spare fingers to add embellishments. Here in example 3, I'm still using 4 chords, but the progression does change a little, though you'll still recognise the shapes, which I think is a real key. Here's the D, then 2 frets down to C, and then down to an E flat. Okay, and then we are G. From that G, I then jump up and then do a little pentatonic lick, but let's flesh that out with a bit more detail. I've done what's probably the most obvious thing on each one. So it's just about playing with the rhythm of it and using those. Okay, and then we have this jump. From there, you're free to do this. It's basically drawing from this pentatonic pattern here. So again, I'm thinking chordally and I'm adding embellishments. If it helps, by all means think of it as adding pentatonic notes. But to be honest, I don't know that I'm thinking of it that way. I'm aware, now that I've played it, that I was drawing from the pentatonic. Okay, and then we are changing from that E flat to G. And I really don't have much time for anything other than a rake across, because I want to use some pentatonic licks from up this end of the fretboard. Once I've made that jump up to here, I am going in a very linear fashion along the strings. Now I am using pentatonic shapes here, but again, this is about patterns that work. I know that that's where I've gone. I mean, if we are to get a bit more specific, I know it's taken from... I know that... And then... play the right notes, that would help. But you can see that I'm drawing from pentatonic shapes. Again, it's not even necessarily important that you know what the shapes are. It's just good to recognise them. Time to move on to example 4. In this final part, again, I'm using chord shapes as my basic template, though I am coming out to do a bit of a pentatonic lick at the end. So let's look at those chords first. D. As you'll recognise, it's part of that. And I'm adding the sus4. And I'm copying the kind of Hendrix little wing sense of rhythm there. Then I'm down again to C. Now I suppose I am becoming more complicated here. So that's very much... I'm playing with pentatonic patterns within the chord shape. So I'm going... So there are 2 types of C chord hidden away in that lick. Now, for the final part, I've slid up to the E flat, which is the same shape that we've been dealing with for the D and the C. And then I am thinking more in terms from that point on. I hope that makes sense. And then we end where we began, with that G. To get the tone for this, I've used the neck pickup. I've rolled the tone back slightly, though your mileage may vary, as the saying goes. Certain guitars benefit from that. This one certainly did. Other guitars you may find that you want the brightness to push the amp. In this case, I've gone with the Marshall JTM 45 Mark II. We've given the Vox AC15 the day off, though I do stress that we could probably have plugged into any valve amp and got something that would have worked for this. But seeing as we've got the Marshall, we thought we might as well use it, because I know Hendrix liked his Marshalls. And there's a little bit of distortion on there, tiny bit of drive. It's a non-master volume amp, but we've turned up and balanced the normal and bright channels till we had the kind of breakup that we wanted, and then adjusted the EQ to fit in the track. Lost a bit of bass end actually in this case. And of course there is some plate reverb and a tiny bit of delay actually, just to give it that atmospheric 60s feel that I wanted. So that's it. I'm aware that I'm trying to cover quite large chunks of information concisely here, so don't feel bad if you need to go back and watch some of the bits again to fully get to grips with it. I'm aware that there are also concepts like the cage system linking with the pentatonic shapes. I've already said that I'm considering doing a video dedicated purely to that, but do feel free to make any requests in the comments about that or other artists that you want covered. We do read the comments and we try and respond, so do go ahead and do that. For now, I will say, hope you enjoy it and see you next time. And of course, we'll play out with the solo again.